Hey there, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. We're got people from across North America on this webinar. Welcome to the Sound of Scaling Up. And before it seizes up, it's all about, we're going to talk about today how to hear it, what it means, and most importantly, what to do about it. So we've got 30 minutes, and I'm going to take your questions in the Q&A, put them in as they occur to you, and I'll answer them at the end after I've revealed the top 3 sounds that mean your scale up is seizing up. And at the end, I'll describe the gift I'm going to be giving you for attending today's webinar. So we're going to touch on the types of scale up projects that this works with, the realities of being in a scale up project, what's expected of employees, what typically happens from our experience, the cost of startup failure, the sounds that cue the problems that you can tune into, and the solution to prevent failures. And then we'll take your questions. Okay, so I'm Lorraine McGregor. I'm the co-founder of Spirit West Management. We've been in business since 1990, finding and fixing the red flags that make growth and making your business saleable and scaling up challenging. And this process that we're about to reveal to you is one of the key ways that we help companies improve valuations from 2 to even 4 times as much as when we first meet them. We've worked with more than 300 companies, and we understand these complexities because we deconstruct what's not working, why, and how to fix it. So we have clients from across North America and the Caribbean, every type of business from professional services to construction, healthcare to tech, predictive analytics, which we all know is the precursor to AI. So we often get referrals from M&A advisors when they meet companies that are not ready to sell, but they want to keep them close, and there's a bit of help they need to grow to that next level and be ready for sale. We work with private equity groups and their platform companies to improve their growth prospects. We also have many referrals from wealth advisors helping their business owner clients understand whether they can turn their current business into a saleable asset at some point and get that better return on investment. And of course, we get referrals from previous clients. So our solution works on many types of scale-up projects, from startup through first customers, when you've got to be automating systems, when you've got to develop new workflow, when you're developing a sales system and marketing's trying to generate leads and sales is trying to understand if they qualify and business development's trying to turn them into deals. Even on shareholder disputes, when there's disconnects about what everybody's goals are and what's important to the best interest of the company, which is where we always start. And the work of developing key performance indicators, so you're measuring what matters. Those are projects in and of themselves. What are the yardsticks that make sure that your business is operating on all cylinders? We also use this process in capacity planning, reorganizing roles and responsibilities. You can hold people accountable to those responsibilities with the right level of authority. Often what is required is to embed project management processes in your activities, and that can be difficult because your level of maturity for project management might not be at the level it needs to be. So we help in that area. This process is also great for improving profitability because it's very useful for finding the profitability leaks. So you can get more predictable working capital, you can pay more predictable dividends, and potentially make it ready for sale, which is the ultimate form of return on investment. We also use this process to help a company understand what it's going to take to integrate an acquisition, so you're ready for it at the time when the ideal opportunity shows up, and selling the business, which is a lot of transition planning long before you ever want to sell it. We also build and embed post-sale customer success workflows. So, you've got all these great customers, but are they going to stick around? Well, having a customer success program is key to ensuring that your customers are actually using your offerings in a way that gets them exactly what they need. And customer success is key to helping them stick around and keep paying their fees. And of course, ultimately, when you implement a new strategic plan, you need to implement it in a project management fashion across the organization. So that generates all kinds of project activities that are forcing the organization to improve infrastructure and be ready for the next wave of growth at a functional level and at an organizational level. So all of these opportunities come up in most of our engagements, and we're ready to help you sort through them and understand how not to seize them up. But let's look at a few of the realities of scaling up. I mean, these are complex projects. It requires understanding the interdependencies across the business, and interdependencies mean wherever two silos, two departments touch, and there's a gap, and those two departments like marketing and sales depend on each other, but they're run differently. You have a gap in understanding, a gap in information flow, and that stops the process from the interdependencies cascading through the company so that you get the desired end result. So it's a balancing act, you know that, to grow capacity so that you can, meet the growth and the expectations of demand without overspending on all the organizational issues you have to attend to in order to be ready for that growth. And as a result, scale up projects often become a test of how much demand there really is for your offering. And that brings with it its own complexities, its own disappointments, its own, gee, I thought there was more people that wanted what we had, or maybe we've got the wrong positioning, the wrong messaging. Maybe we don't have the right target audience. Maybe we haven't described what we do in a way that's enticing our target audience. Maybe we have to change our processes. So scale up projects, when they seize up, often reveal things you're not paying attention to that need a shift in perspective. And here's the big thing, it's requiring a whole bunch of people who are, engineers or analysts to take on organizational process planning and turn themselves into, experts in organizational change. And that's not everybody that has those key skills. So, and I guess that, that reveals how disruptive scale-ups can be. You're busy trying to work on the business of the company, but you have all these other projects to attend to, and you're starting to make changes. You're starting to change the flow of work. So you're starting to disrupt what works well now, destabilizing the very operations that have to keep the company moving forward. And if everybody is focused on the operations, not on the organizational improvement projects, then they're not seeing and preventing impacts of those scale-up projects before they occur. And of course, the other dynamic element in all of this is scale-up projects all involve teams of people, and people find scale-ups hard because they're working outside their comfort zone, their talent area. They're involved in every step, and they have to buy into those steps because you're expecting them to adapt their habits, their behavior change, how they move information across the organization in order to accommodate these new realities about what's expected, to automate the system, to change how they do things. And those habits have served them well, and now we want change without disrupting operations. So no mean feat. And most humans hate change unless we instigate it. So I want you to change, but I'm not going to change. Well, that starts a conflict right there. So what else are we looking at here? Well, you really have to understand and stand in the shoes of your employees if you're in leadership, because you're expecting a lot. On top of a full-time job, you want your employees to participate in these scale-up projects, these organizational infrastructure building, process change mapping, and then learn how to deal with all the organizational interdependencies on the fly. So to be able to understand interdependencies, you have to understand systems thinking. And systems thinking is about how one system here in this silo called marketing affects the next system called qualifying the lead, which affects the next system called meeting with the customer and meeting all of their needs. And all of those have different activities and importance, and everybody wants to be successful. But until you step out of your own role, you can't see those interdependencies. And in management, you have to be aligning all those issues to manage those interdependencies. And if you're not doing that, it's another reason scale-ups seize up. So, and while you're doing all that, you're trying to change tried and true communication channels. So everybody's, dedicated to Slack or hopping on a Zoom call or just working on their own and not talking to anybody. And now that is starting to wobble and make be affected by change. So it's another issue that you've got to deal with that is a necessary part of scaling up, and getting that buy-in to participate in rebuilding these systems and then implementing the changes that are expected is a tall order for employees. So let's have comfort for them, compassion, but then let's also help them in a way that gets them involved so that they are excited about what's going on next. So there's been a lot of documentation of the cost of scale-up failures. It's pretty well studied from the Startup Genome Report, Harvard Business Review, McKinsey, and the financial repercussions. You know, you're applying a lot of organizational resource to unbillable work. There's increased operational costs because of all of these things that are changing. There's lots of market opportunities because you thought you were going to be ready for growth, but you're not there yet. There's the effect of brand reputation. If your stuff gets out there and it's missing key workflow, or people find out that there is no customer service behind what's being offered in a way that helps them to their satisfaction. And when it gets difficult in the culture because people are expected to do things they're not used to doing, that can cause employee turnover, which also has its own legal or regulatory problems. So team dynamics is essential for scale-up projects and operational projects. So if your scale-ups are seizing up, the bad feeling carries over in the atmosphere to everything else that people are working on inside the business to serve customers, to serve the organization. So yeah, it's a sticky wicket and you got to tackle it. You can't leave it alone. So here are the sounds of scale-ups that are seizing up. So they come in the form of complaints, finger pointing, and silence. So why do we call it the sounds of scaling up? Well, as we work with more than 300 companies, we noticed that people saw what was going on around them and responded to them by thinking about things they don't like and what's not working for them. And it's all personal. It's all subjective based on the narrow perspective I have about what's happening to me. And the sound of what's happening to me is sounds like complaints. It really does. And if you're management, you know, you kind of tend to tune out complaints. The lineup at your door gets irritating. You just want to get back to business, right? And get over all of these crises that are happening. But it's actually a very ineffective way to deal with complaints, because complaints have gold. Every complaint can be turned into the solution that actually removes the bottleneck from the problem. But you've got to sort through the complaints in order to generate better solutions. And that's better solution is what becomes the gold. Finger pointing, all about who? Silence, as a result of all the effort that went into it and the disappointment that's coming out of the project, not getting where we wanted to go. So what we're looking at here on the left are complaints. This is generated by a team of 50 employees who, you know, had all the issues we've just been talking about, trying to grow the company to the next level. And here are all the things that are getting in their way that they can't deal with. There are themes in the yellow, and the actual complaints contributed to by 40, 50 people who have these complaints, and they're from each person's perspective. So we can actually hear how it occurs to them, because how it occurs to them is crucial to understand how we're going to deal with it. So these complaints, you're going to hear them, and they're what focused. You're going to hear about them on Slack. You're going to read about them in email. You're going to hear the tone of them in Zoom meetings because they sound like sarcasm, bitey comments, what I don't like, what's not working. I speak up, but no one does anything. I never get the information I need when I need it. And I've already asked so many times. So this is the sound of the 4 Fs. Oops, let me go back. This is the sound of the 4 Fs: fear, frustration, and futility. Fear that I am not going to be seen as successful in my job because I am lacking pieces of my puzzle that I need to do my job because the person behind me is not ready yet, even though they said they were going to be ready. And frustration because, you know, you have to tell the next person down the line in the workflow, sorry, I can't deliver. And that makes you just feel frustrated because you know you can do your job if you have the right resources and tools and information and cooperation from your teammates. And so you have a sense of futility that no matter what you do, you can't make a difference. That is deeply contagious to the culture, and people feel like the employees feel like they have no power to deal with the problems that deeply affect their ability to do their job, to be successful, to be appreciated. And the secret is that this is not just the employee's experience, this is management's experience. And they're standing on the sidelines witnessing all of this and going, we don't know how to solve these problems either, but they can't appear to be saying that. And so one of the crucial come to moments is to recognize when you can't see and you don't see and you can't figure out what to do, that you have to name that. You don't avoid it. And I'll show you in a few minutes what the effect of not naming it is. So here's an example of the complaints of an expensive and resource that's been underutilized. Now, this is a person brought in to do quality checks for reporting. Quality affects your brand, affects your visibility, it affects the customer experience, it affects the morale of the team that you're building quality on. His quality comments never seem to get read from his perspective, because he's asked at the last minute on the last day when they promised the report to the client, here, can you just do a once over? And if he just does a once over and he sees these things that need delivery, need improvement, what's he going to do? Tell the client that, sorry, you can't have the project. It's not ready yet. Well, those are the kinds of conflicts that many startups deal with, many companies that are growing the next level, many companies that have hundreds of employees, thousands of employees, is that there isn't time in the schedule to do everything that was expected. And so what we've got here is the impact on this employee who is a subcontractor. They pay a lot of money to write these things. And there's a load of wasted profits right here, and it's not being dealt with. So he doesn't feel included in meetings. He doesn't feel heard. He doesn't feel respected. There's a big loaded word that people use because no one is taking the time to look at what he said. They just want to deliver the thing and move on to the next project. So sound number 2, finger pointing, and it's all who focused. Who's not holding up their end? Who is actually doing all this work? Who is supposed to be doing all this work? And people enroll others in who should be fired because things are not being done. And so what we have over here is something called the drama triangle. There's the victim that feels at the mercy of all of these who problems. And if only other people would change their ways, then I would get my needs met. And here's the villain. This is the person that they're accusing is actually taking away their ability to do their job. And here's the hero, probably the manager, trying to sort all the issues out so that the customer can get what was promised, right? And so this goes round and round and round, and you're going to continue to miss deadlines if everybody's only paying attention to who they think should be fired, because it's surely just one person's fault, right? If we got rid of them, that might solve all the problems. Rarely does. Bad news, sorry. But what you'll see is lots of eye rolling, body language, and a lot of finger pointing because people don't know how to solve the problem for themselves. And so when we're who focused, we're not thinking about what the issues are. We're not thinking about the interdependencies. We're just thinking about get me out of this situation because I can't deal with it. So here are examples of Post-it notes regarding communications, expectations, and follow-up that the typical finger pointing complaints process shows us. And here's where the gold is. If we understand the employee experience, yes, listen to all these complaints, all this finger pointing, but we're focused on just what is going on, not who it's about. We can actually get to the bottom, the root cause of what's causing the poor communications, the missed expectations, and the follow-up that never happens. And then so here are examples of what people are saying. They're not feeling incorporated in the company, so they don't get critical information when they need it. I have less motivation, resulting in lack of productivity. It's going to show the company in a negative light because my project's not coming in on time, not delivering. The workflow's affected. The company's not receiving all the issues to find solutions. So, and the issues keep piling on, right? They just cascade into more issues and more finger pointing and more blame. And it's, it's so contagious because of that cascade effect. So that's the experience of the employees. And then here we are, number 3, silence. And if you're hearing silence, and you're in management because you're not getting any information, you know that you're at the end of this cycle of sounds. Everybody's put in a big effort, and the results, the expected results, are failing to show. And so there's this growing sense of doom, of disappointment, and everybody knows, no one knows what to say, but everybody's kind of whispering, "I told you so," because they can see it. They can see the cascade of problems piling up like a big wave. And, they tried to tell people, but no one was listening. And people are whispering, if they'd only solve this, and they only solve that. They're talking about the what problems, but not in the Zoom meetings. They're not bringing things up because they're afraid that it's going to turn into a blame fest. And so when employees hear silence from management because management doesn't know what to do about everything they're hearing and not hearing, that just burns a hole in everything that you're trying to do. And so then management tries to pretend or come up with a band-aid, because really, what do I do? I mean, I'm just seeing the mess. So there might be, who should we fire? Or there's a twisting of the realities that everybody else can see, but we're just going to deny those because we don't want to deal with them. And everybody starts to be enrolled in the story about what could be happening, but isn't actually happening. And so that just leads to even more disappointment, leads to a lack of hope for the future. And that shrinking hope means there's an unwillingness to take on responsibility and take new risks. So what you're looking over here at the right-hand side is the mindset of people in this situation and what they want to do differently going forward. Something we call the Book of Agreements, about how it's going to happen next time, so all this stuff doesn't happen. So here's the summary. The sounds of your scale-up project seizing up are complaints, finger pointing, and silence, but it's all part of the cycle. When you're just hearing complaints, there's something that can be done. When it's gotten to finger pointing, a lot more conflict has showed up, but it's very dysfunctional. And when you've gotten to silence, the truth is being twisted into something else, because everybody just wants to move on from the conflict, but that's a band-aid. That's never going to get you where you want to go. But it's all part of the same problem. And the kooky thing here is, and the embarrassing thing is, everybody can see a part of the problem. They all have their perspective, and they all are a piece of the solution. Everybody's perspective. But if management chooses not to hear those sounds, not to pay attention to what they see, and put their head in the sand, then all the reality of what people are experiencing goes away, and with it goes the gold. The gold being, hey, every complaint we can turn into a desired end result and remap a future to get what we actually want, instead of sitting in this puddle experiencing what we don't want. So another cornerstone of this situation is, in these, what we've often found is management is under-delivering on effective follow-up on these projects and hands-on participation in these organizational scale-up projects, while over-promising the results. So not engaged, and so undermining their own expectations by how they participate and their lack of it. And so the fact is that whenever you're in growth mode, for whatever reason, whatever you're doing, it's going to lead to gaps in how information flows through silos, and gaps between silos, and your interdependencies, which are the infrastructure that you need to scale up your organization, become larger. The gaps grow. And so what do you do about that? Well, first of all, you have to understand the impact of what you do and what others do on the overall performance you're listening to. So here is the organization in this box. You make a promise to customers, or wherever your project's focused, the owner of the project, and you say, this is what's going to happen. And then you've got all this convoluted, complaint-driven, finger-pointing disorganization that creates all these systems and automations that are independent. I do it my way because it works for me, and she does it her way because it works for her. So there's no consistency, and this is what creates profit leaks. It's the knowledge remains in the heads of the people that are trying to get work done, and they're hoarding because there's no one else that can do it. So everybody is burnt out. They're doing too much with too little time, with too little knowledge, and everybody has massive expectations that are disproportionate to what the work is. And so what you get is confused and delayed outcomes because of that. And of course, what you really want and what the process is that we use is this straight line from the promise to desired outcomes at the level of performance that's, important, but not outsized. And the results, a happy customer, a great team, everybody appreciated, and on to the next project at the level of quality that builds your visibility, builds your brand recognition, and builds pride in the company, which is very good for attracting new employees and keeping the ones that you have. So when you set your collective effort on a common desired end result and map the interdependencies, this is what you'll experience, and this is what our processes aim for. So what's the solution? Well, you've got to empower the culture to change its future. This is a team working on exactly this process. 50 people came together. They focus on what's in the best interest of the business, and we convene the teams with management. This isn't a, everybody go away and you figure it out and tell us when you're done. Management participates. We map the complaints within whatever the scale-up project is. And then we theme them. We prioritize the top 3 to 5 themes that are in the best interest of the business, that have the greatest urgency, that will give you the biggest bang for your dollar, that will cause a lot of bottlenecks to go away. And as we say, turn those complaints into gold. And then we set guidelines. We don't do that. They're doing the work with our guidance for setting new guidelines for the desired end results they actually want, what they hope for, what they wish for, what they've been waiting for all this time. And there are teams appointed, and they choose to be on the team to develop the action plan to implement the very things that are going to turn those complaints into gold, to free up resources so that you can actually get the results you're hoping for instead of being mired in this seize up mentality. And so here's the summary on the solution. We're looking at swim lane diagrams here. Here's the design team. They have a handover to the drawings team, and there's a bunch of different people responsible for that work and the information package that goes to that team. So we investigate where these gaps are and map the status quo, because you got to understand what you're changing before you change it. Kind of like when you're doing a renovation, if you don't measure the room first, you will never get success when you retile that bathroom. To identify what people don't know that they need to know. This is a crucial complaint. You set desired end results for these processes. What should this handover look like? What should this team be doing to prepare adequately so this team can be successful? And you map the new workflow where the gaps are closed. So everybody and every issue is taken care of. And you identify the key decision points and handovers and what has to be handed over. And in this way, you can now see the drawing team is going to make an agreement with the design team about how and when information flows. And this is crucial because everybody's saying, yep, this is what we're going to do. And we've solved our problem. So the likelihood of us getting it done is a lot higher probability now. And most important for these people that you're expecting to deliver results, management needs to empower people with the appropriate authority to make decisions when they need to. And this is how you're going to achieve better accountability to their responsibilities. And that is something that a lot of management doesn't understand. How do you empower someone to have authority? Well, yeah, you got to trust them with decisions, but you've got to give them the mentoring in order to make the crucial decisions. So here's what's possible. This is an example of a team that, had 14 different areas that they needed to create new workflow on. And this is the do's and don'ts of providing scheduling and resources so that everybody has what they need when they need it. and the management of those resources. So, you get the car and it's not filthy and it has gas in it. It is in the location where you need it. The equipment is ready to go. You have records of where it was used and how many hours it was used on particular jobs. You have the people on your team. You're not missing key skill sets that have been assigned to 3 teams when they have capacity for 2. All of these types of things help you get people excited about the future, excited about the possibility that all the things that they need, they're going to have, and they're the ones creating these outcomes along with you, the managers. So I will take questions now, and your gift is a 30-minute discussion with me to talk about what you're hearing in your organization. I'll help you deconstruct it and know what could be done with about it. And look for an email from me with instructions on how to set up that Zoom call. So I'm going to stop recording now and we'll go to questions.